Voice AI agents are one of the hottest selling AI solutions in the world right now, and for good reason. They're able to do inbound calls and outbound calls, mimic sales reps and receptionists, and do all this at scale for pretty cheap. And that sort of value add has caused the AI voice agency niche to balloon to over $1 billion industry in a really short amount of time. But up until now, creating sophisticated AI voice agents that are actually good, that work, that had some personalization was kind of tricky. You had to manage a huge tech stack that didn't always want to play nice with each other. And on top of that, some of the voice quality just wasn't there yet. But with some upgrades to a few of the premier voice applications like ElevenLabs, that's begun to change. We've been able to shrink the tech stack while creating very effective voice agents, and you can do all this with virtually no code. And that creation process is what I'm going to show you today. I'm going to show you how to create sophisticated AI voice agents from start to finish, tie them inside an actual CRM ecosystem so you can turn around and actually sell these to people. And I'm going to show you how to set up this entire voice agent from start to finish. We're going to give it a phone number through Twilio. We're going to go inside ElevenLabs and actually set up our voice agent. We're going to build our n8n infrastructure on the back end like you see here. And then I'm going to show you where CRM fits into all this. Because if you want to actually sell these for real, this data needs to go somewhere. And every business is going to have a different CRM. So we can't go through every possible iteration of what this will look like. But for our case, we're going to go through Airtable. And Airtable is nice because you can take all this data and you can make nice little dashboards. And guess what sells well? Dashboards. Everybody loves dashboards. So we're going to show you pretty much the beginning to end how we can package this all nicely so you can present the value it provides to anybody. So here's how I'm going to run this video. First, I'm going to take you through a high-level overview of the tech stack and how this all works, both from an inbound call side and an outbound call side, because those two things differ. Then once you understand how this all works conceptually, then we're going to go through everything one step at a time. We're going to go to Twilio. We're going to get that phone number. We're then going to set up our sort of CRM flow because our use case for today is going to be creating essentially an outbound sales rep, right? You run a company, you have some sort of inbound lead who fills out some sort of form, and this voice AI agent is going to get to work calling that lead, getting their information, sending it back to you, and even setting up a one-on-one meeting. And with that use case in mind, we're going to build out the ElevenLabs and n8n infrastructure, all while keeping in mind various CRM tie-ins. But first, let's go through a demo. Okay, for this demo, we're pretending we are some sort of lead that's filling out some sort of form for your company. In this case, I'm saying, I'm Chase Hagan, here's my email, here's my phone number, and I'm requesting more information about some sort of service, right? I want this company to build me a voice AI agent. So when this lead submits the form, that form is then going to populate inside of Airtable. Remember, Airtable is basically like Google Sheets. And then that's going to trigger the ElevenLabs voice agent to call me and get some more information and actually qualify me. So I'm going to hit submit. And then in real time, we're going to wait for the phone call to actually happen. I'm going to show you my phone, and then we'll listen to my conversation. So we hit submit. We can go to view data. We can see what the data actually looks like. And let's wait for that call. Okay, here's the phone call. And I'll put it on speaker.
Hi, Chase. This is Sarah from Chase AI. I'm reaching out to follow up on your interest in our voice AI agent service.
Hey, Sarah, how's it going?
Great, thank you. To make sure we fully understand your vision, I just have 3 quick questions. First, could you tell me a little more about the core problem you're hoping to solve with this AI agent? What does a successful outcome look like for your business?
Yeah, I'd like a voice AI agent that can essentially qualify leads for me. So it'll take in some sort of intake form and then call them and qualify them and set up a meeting.
That sounds like a perfect use case for our custom AI agents. Second, to help us scope the project correctly, do you have a rough budget range in mind? It's perfectly fine if it's just an estimate.
Yeah, my budget's $20,000.
And finally, what is your ideal timeline for getting a solution like this implemented?
As soon as possible.
Thank you. That's all incredibly helpful. Based on what you've described, this is definitely the kind of project our team excels at. The next step would be a complimentary discovery session with one of our lead AI strategists. Would you be open to scheduling that?
Yeah, you can go ahead and schedule that for me.
Perfect. I'll send a calendar link to your email so you can pick a time that works best. We're looking forward to digging into this with you.
All right, sounds great. Thanks. Okay, that was a call. Usually the call actually happens a little faster, but even though it was a little delayed, at least from what I've seen before, it took about 15 seconds or so from the time we filled out the form to where it actually executed it. And you might have just saw right there on the left, we actually had some more executions happening on the backside. So let's see if it actually sent me an email too, like kind of following up and wanting to actually set up that meeting. Here it is. Here's the email. Hi, Chase. Below is the Calendly link. And then obviously this is a fake Calendly link. But what you saw right there was from form submission to lead qualification to meeting set up, all automated in basically a minute. Now, you might quibble about, hey, I don't like how the voice agent sounded, or I didn't like the voice, or I'd like it to do something differently. That's all customizable, right? But what we saw here is like the system in place that you are able to tweak to get it to be whatever you want. But like that was a pretty lean and pretty quick outbound calling voice agent that actually got a lot done, right? Qualify the lead, talk to them right away. Like it's a huge thing in sales to like when someone submits a form like that to get back to them, the longer you wait, the harder it is to actually make them a customer. And we did all that instantly. So let's take a little deeper dive of what sort of data we collected, right? We had the call, and you see up here that some of the information came from the form, right? First name, last name, email, phone number, service requested. But what else did we get here? Well, we got a call summary. So it gave us a quick little blurb about, hey, what was actually talked about on this call. We get the actual lead status. We consider a lead to be qualified if they want to have a meeting. Gave us sort of a budget range, timeline. We also have the full transcript, right? Agent, user, all of that. We then have a voice opener section. So this is the personalized opening line from the agent where it says their first name and then it follows up about the service they did. And this is AI generated inside of Airtable. And we'll get into that a little bit later. And then just someone created and last modified stuff. So that's what's happening. That's what we're pulling from the call, right? So we have all that data in one place. We can then turn that into some sort of dashboard when we have more data, and then it followed up with the actual email. So now let's jump into kind of a high level overview of what you just saw and what's happening behind the scenes, because I think it's really important to internalize this because there is actually a lot going on. And even though the tech stack has shrunk lately, we're still looking at, kind of 4 different services all working in harmony. And from the outbound voice agent, this kind of just takes us through one step at a time of everything that happened, right? And as we go from outbound voice agent to inbound voice agent and how personalization occurs, and also when you start thinking about, well, like what happens when I'm using a different CRM than Airtable, it is vital that you understand how it's working, right? You can't just be, a YouTube tutorial monkey who's copying me step by step without really figuring out, okay, like how is this working and why? So let's understand before we build. Now, first things first, what is the tech stack we'll be using? Well, there's 4 things that you actually saw in action there in that demo. Twilio, ElevenLabs, and n8n. So Twilio is a service we are going to be using to give it a phone number, right? It needs to call me. It needs a telephone number. And also, if you're doing inbound, it needs a phone number for you to call as well, right? So we're going to be using Twilio for that. We set up an account. We're going to give it somewhere between like probably $20, $5 to $20 of credit. And then we actually have to buy a phone number. Buying a phone number costs like $1 a month. So it's not going to break the bank. Then we have AI voice. So the program doing the heavy lifting with the voice is ElevenLabs, right? They have a number of subscriptions. You can start with $5 a month, which will be fine as you're doing testing, and then you can slowly ramp up. Then we have n8n, which is kind of the back end. You saw that with kind of this. This is all the back end stuff that's happening, and we'll dive into this a little bit into more detail in a second. And whoops. And then we have Airtable, right? And remember, Airtable for this video is just a stand-in for any sort of CRM. If you are building these for clients, they probably won't be using Airtable. They might be using Google Sheets. They might be using HubSpot, whatever. You are going to have to figure out a way how to integrate the data that you pull in from your calls into that CRM. But the nice thing about Airtable is you're able to kind of build out these dashboards like I mentioned before, and you can pretty much sell this as also like a custom CRM system, right? Because it sort of is like you're immediately ingesting customers, you're getting their data, you're displaying it on the dashboard, plus you're doing all those voice AI agent things. So you actually have the ability when you show up with kind of Airtable in your back pocket and this whole thing of being like, hey, I'm giving you voice agent and a CRM. So I'm going to charge you a little more. People will pay for that. And luckily for you, I'm giving you all of this, right? Remember, I'm giving you the templates for n8n. I'm going to give you the the system prompt for ElevenLabs, and I'm going to give you links for all the Airtable templates, so you can just turn around and use this yourself. All right, now let's talk about the outbound voice agent and sort of like what we just went through. So, and the tools involved. So the lead fills out the form, right? That's all CRM. From there, the data gets sent to the CRM, in this case, Airtable. Now, the big difference between the outbound voice agent and the inbound voice agent is kind of like what kicks this all off naturally. So that CRM upload from the form is going to trigger that voice call, and actually gets a little more detailed than that. If we look at this, the actual trigger is going to be this voice opener being created. So this voice opener inside of Airtable is actually using AI. So it takes in that form submission of like name and what they want, and it creates, using AI, this sort of opener for us, right? So it's always going to be dynamic and it's always going to be personalized. Once this voice opener is created, it then triggers the call. And that trigger is technically based on this last modified thing, which only populates when this does. So that kind of confused you, just know when this form gets filled out, the call occurs right away. And that call involves Airtable, right? The CRM doing the trigger. It involves ElevenLabs and it involves n8n. Now let's dive into this, because this portion is actually important and can become rather confusing if we don't really understand this before we build, right? Because it took me a little while to get my head wrapped around it. So the trigger, right here, this outbound call, that's the trigger, right? This is Airtable saying, hey, this form got filled out, execute the call. And this sends an API call to ElevenLabs. So it triggers it, tells ElevenLabs, hey, go make the phone call, right? Make the phone call. If we dive into here, you'll see what we're passing, right? We're doing agent ID, agent phone number, and we'll talk about this in more detail, but it's passing the actual phone number from that form for it to execute the call. Now, what's important to understand is this fetch initiation client data. Now, what the heck is going on here? What does that mean? If we want this voice agent to be effective, it needs to be personalized, right? It needs to be able to grab data about the client as the call happens, and it needs to be fast. So let's remember that call that happened not too long ago, right? When it called me, what happened was when it called me, between the time it sent the call and the time I picked up, basically instantly, this occurred, this fetch client data. And what happened is it went into Airtable, right? And it grabbed all the information about the person it was calling. And once it grabbed all the information about that person, it then sent it back to the voice agent so it could use it on the call. So fetch initiation client data happens at the beginning of every call, and it allows the voice agent to go inside our CRM, grab all the important information, all the personal information about that particular person, right, based on their phone number, so it can then personalize the call. And that's really, really important, right? For this sales agent, it's pretty basic, name and what they want. But think about it on the inbound call side, right? Imagine you have some repeat customer that's calling in, and right away your voice agent grabs all the information about how long have they been with us? What was their last pain point? How valuable are they as a customer, right? You can have all of this ingested by the voice agent instantly at the beginning of every single call. And it's done using this. So the CRM upload triggers the voice call. We grab all that personal information, all that personalized data. We send it to our voice agent, and then the call happens, right? In this case, the lead is qualified on the call. That's pretty basic. That's just going to be a function of the system prompt inside of ElevenLabs, where we tell the voice agent, hey, here's how I want you to conduct the call. Here's what information I want you to grab, etc. And then we have some post-call stuff, right? We're going to take the transcript. We're going to parse it for data. We're going to upload it to the CRM, and then we have our follow-on actions. And those follow-on actions you saw were, hey, let's send an email to them and get them set up with some sort of calendar link. So that's what's happening here in the red and the post-call data plus scheduling. So this is a webhook that triggers whenever the call ends. So the call instantly ends, and we'll be able to see some of the data that's passed. There's a ton of data that's passed. Essentially, the entire conversation is passed, right? From here, we have the one bit of code we use, which is just a simple block of code that goes through here and pulls out the transcript in its entirety and just formats it nicely, right? All this information here is in here on the left. We just want to format it so it looks pretty inside of our CRM. Next, we send it to a large language model, which actually analyzes the call. So in this case, right, for Chase AI, we want to pull out certain things like the timeline and the budget, and that's all specified here. So we feed the AI the full transcript and we say, hey, get me the pertinent information and I want you to break it out into certain items so then I can go ahead and map it to my CRM. So then we update it. And then over here, We check, hey, did we qualify the lead? If so, grab their email, send them that email with a calendar link. That's what's happening on the backside. And so that is the general outbound flow. I know we spent a lot of time with that, and you're probably like, I've already been in this video for like 15 minutes. I haven't built a damn thing. It's important to get this at the front end, right? The more we understand this, the easier the build will be, and the easier it'll be for you to customize this and actually use it for real. And so back to the tech stack for a second, where does it all fall? Just understand n8n is pretty much the glue, right? Everything kind of flows through n8n. We have information from the CRM that we want to push to the ElevenLabs voice agent. We have information we get on the call from the voice agent that we want to send to our CRM. And n8n is sort of that middleman that makes it all kind of flow, right? It's the glue. Now, today's video is going to be focused on outbound voice agents, but I just want to talk about inbound voice agents real quick and kind of some of the differences, just so you understand. We will have the follow-on videos that dive into inbound stuff, but in case you're kind of wondering, hey, what's the difference? Let's talk about it very briefly. Right, it's a little bit simpler because the trigger is from the outside, right? Someone just calls in, which is going to trigger the ElevenLabs to take the call. The voice agent conducts the call. Now, this is one part that can be a little more complicated than the inbound, because what you're doing on that call when it's inbound may be somewhat sophisticated, right? You may be, imagine you're a receptionist. So I need to pull in perhaps, a lot more data about that customer, right? Like, what was sort of items are they talking about? Are they talking about warranties? Are they doing returns? Are they doing appointments? There might be a lot of tools I need to call on that call. And you might see something like this sort of infrastructure being used, right, for the inbound calls. But after that, it's pretty much the same. You're going to parse the data, you're going to upload it to CRM, and there'll be follow-on actions, whatever that may be. So let's finally start diving into building. We now understand the stack we need to attack. We understand how everything's going to be working. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to go to Twilio and we're going to go get our phone number. All right, so you're going to go to twilio.com. You're going to create an account, and then you're going to go to your dashboard. Your dashboard is then going to look something like this. You are going to need to upgrade your account. Like I said, just throw it like 20 bucks. Then you're going to go into phone numbers. You're going to go to manage, and then you're going to go to active numbers. And here you'll see a list of your numbers. You are going to go to buy a number on the top right. And here you're going to pick your number to buy. You're going to have to do some sort of ID verification, really just ask for like your name and your address. It's pretty simple. And once you do that, you're pretty much done. Just go back here to active numbers and just have that number handy, because you'll have to be feeding it into ElevenLabs. All right, so that part was pretty easy. So now let's go ahead and build our voice agent. So you're going to log in the top right or create an account. You're going to see some page like this. You're going to go to the left where it says agents, and this is where we are going to build out our AI agent. But first thing I want you to do is let's actually hook up our telephone number. So go to the bottom left, go to phone numbers under telephony. You're going to go to import number. Now, if you're using Twilio, it's super easy. You're just going to do from Twilio. If you're using some other phone provider to add a number, they're going to have some sort of SIP trunk documentation for doing that. So if you aren't using Twilio, just go to your phone provider of choice and look up their documentation to adding numbers to an external party with the SIP trunk functionality. But for this, we're using Twilio. And here, just call it whatever you want. You're going to give it a phone number, and then you're going to give it your Twilio account SID. Now to find that, just go back to Twilio, go to your dashboard, and you can find your account SID and your auth token right here. So just copy and paste those into this section of ElevenLabs once you import it. All right, next we're going to go to agents, and we're going to create a new agent. So you're just coming to the top right, hit new agent. We can just call it business agent. Now it's going to give you a bunch of options, and this makes you feel nice, like, oh my gosh, I already have a pre-built one. Not really. Honestly, it just changes a few default settings, and we're going to edit them all anyway. So just choose whatever you want. We can do retail and commerce, and we'll do outbound sales. So we can call this whatever we want. We'll call this guy, it hates it, honestly, when you are in dark mode, so you're not going to be able to see my text. But yeah, that's what's happening. So we're going to do create agent, and this is now our interface for editing our agent, right? We have the ability to choose the languages, add additional languages, do messages. But what we care about at the beginning is going to be this system prompt. Now, ElevenLabs actually has their own prompting guide. And that prompting guide looks like this. If you just Google ElevenLabs prompting guide, best practices, it'll give you this. And they kind of go through the 6 building blocks of what makes a good guide. Now, we are going to be doing an outbound agent. You might be doing something slightly different. So what I want you to do is I want you to copy this page, You're then going to go to your AI of choice. You're going to paste all that documentation into it, and then you're going to say, hey, here's the documentation for the ElevenLabs system prompt. I'm trying to build a system prompt that does this. And then it's going to spit it out for you, and that's what you're going to use. And so what you see here for mine is I just tell it, hey, you're Sarah, you're an AI assistant from Chase AI. Your goal is to gather project details. It goes into like how to talk, how to qualify, detail gathering, the close, blah, 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 blah. I will have this linked inside the Skool. So you can just copy and paste this if you want to follow along exactly. But this is just where you put what you want it to do and how you want the call to go. Pretty simple. We'll dive into dynamic variables in a bit. Large language model, this is where you give it an actual large language model. Now you might be thinking, isn't this hooked up to n8n, which in some cases also has a whole large language model infrastructure? Yes. As an aside, the ElevenLabs and n8n like integration, understand that ElevenLabs also has its own AI working, right? But you can also connect n8n, and n8n becomes essentially like a tool call of ElevenLabs. So your voice agent almost has like two brains that it can use, a different one each time. Normally, it's going to use its own native brain, right? And that makes it faster. When ElevenLabs is working on its own AI, it's quicker, less latency. But sometimes we need the power of n8n in the background to do things, right? Sophisticated tool calls, like really diving into databases. That is extremely powerful, and you oftentimes need it. Just understand that adds a bit of latency every time we're going another layer deep. So it kind of has two brains. If that's confusing, kind of think of it that way. But choose whatever LLM you want. It gives you the prices. I just use 2.5 flashlight. It's good enough. Temperature, that's basically how creative you want it to be. If you're using something like an assistant or something like this, you probably want it to be fairly deterministic, right? I don't want it to go off the rails. Agent knowledge base. So you can add an actual like documents to this, essentially like a mini RAG system, right? You can actually give it a website URL too. So for me, I just put in the website URL of my company. So that becomes part of its knowledge base. If anyone asks questions about Chase AI itself, it can reference that. Then we have different tools down here, right? You can give it the ability to end the call, right? You can click that if you want. It can detect the language and use multiple languages. And then you'll see down here, it has the ability to like transfer to agent and transfer to number. So we could set up multiple agents, right? Perhaps you had an agent that's a little more specialized for a certain situation. Well, we could give this main AI agent the ability to pass a call to them, right? And that's what would happen here. Same thing with transfer to a number to actually a human, right? You could have some sort of thing in the system prompt that says, hey, tell the person at the beginning of the call if they ever want to be transferred to a human to just say, I want to talk with a human. And that could be a trigger to transfer to a different phone number, right? And that sort of tool call is built in here as well. Then we have some other stuff. We're not going to touch that today. Next, you have the voice. So you can go ahead in here and you can test all the different voices you want. There's literally thousands. You can do custom voices. You can clone your own voice, right? That's also a nice little upsell for clients saying, hey, you want this voice to be just like you? Well, I'll set it up. Just, throw me some extra money, right? Flash, blah, blah, blah. These are just some more like technical stuff, right? You can play around with that as you wish. Analysis, we don't need to worry about. Security, we do care about because we are going to be diving into a few things, right? And the biggest one's going to be the fetch initiation client data webhook and the post call webhook, right? This is really important. These webhooks correspond to these webhooks, right? The fetch initiation client data and the post call data plus scheduling. So we are going to set those up in a minute. And then they also have enable bursting. This allows you to go over your limits if you must. Add that as you wish. All right, now what I want you to do is make sure you saved any changes you made. Real quick, go to phone numbers. I want you to click on the phone number that you've added in, and I want you to assign it to the correct agent, right? In this case, it's support agent for me. Make sure you do that and save, then go back to your agent. So now is the part where we are going to start building out the n8n backend. And so what you need to do now is I want you to go to the Skool, the link's down below, download the template, upload it. So you should get something like this because we're going to build out the same exact thing for you. And it's much quicker when you have everything ready to go. The Skool and the template also give you links to the Airtable templates. So set that up as well. If you've never used Airtable before, you can use a free account, but you will essentially have an entire template set up. Just like me, it will be blank, but you also have the form stuff. So you can essentially follow along with the exact same infrastructure I'm using from this point forward. So we're going to start just by demoing some outbound calls to your phone number. So right now, those outbound calls are conducted via the Airtable trigger, but let's keep it really simple first, and we're just going to have it do it manual so I can show you what it's like having this AI just call you, which is kind of super weird at first, right? So just do a manual trigger, put this in here. I want you then to click on the outbound call, and yours is going to look like this, right? Post URL. It's going to show the outbound call API in there from the template. Now, what you are going to have to do is you need to set up your authentication first with ElevenLabs if you've never done that before. So you're going to go to authentication up here. You're going to go to generic credential type, click that. For generic auth type, go to header auth, and then you're going to create a new credential and you're going to put in the information for ElevenLabs. Now, how do you find that information? Go back to ElevenLabs, come down to the left, go to settings. Go down to the bottom left to where your name is. You're going to go click on that arrow, go to API keys, and then you're going to create a new API key. So just going to, sure. You don't need to restrict the key. So we're going to create, and then you're going to see this. So you're going to copy this. You're going to go inside of here. You're going to put that as the value. You're going to paste that in for the value. And then for the name, you're going to put this. It's going to be xi-API key dash. So xi-API key. So xi-API key. And then down here, you just paste in your API key, hit save, and you'll be connected. Now, I suggest you rename it to something. So every time you want to connect to ElevenLabs, you can just use that one. So I already have an ElevenLabs, so I'll be using mine, but that's how you connect your account. All right, once you've connected your account, we then need to fill out the JSON body we're sending because we need to tell it the ID of the agent we're using. We need to tell it the phone number we're using, and then we need to give it a number to actually call. So let me show you where to find all that. So for the agent ID, go back to ElevenLabs. We're going to go to agents. So if you got lost there, you're going to go up to the top, hit conversational AI, then go to agents on the left, find your agent that you're using, and then up here, just click on that. That's the agent ID. If you click it, it automatically copies it. So then you just come into here, paste that in there. For the agent phone number, it's the same sort of deal. We're going to go down to the left of phone numbers. You're going to find your phone number. You're going to copy that ID, come back into here, paste it in there. Now the to number, right? We had this mapped to our Airtable trigger, but for this, right, we're just doing a test to kind of demo how this all works. I want you to put in your own phone number. So that requires you to also do the area code. So if you don't know what that is, just look up your country code. If you're in the US, it's going to be +1 and then your phone number. And then what I want you to do is go back to ElevenLabs real quick. Let's make sure we have everything set up. So I'm with my agents, I'm at my support agent, go to security, come down here. We're going to have this unclicked for now. So don't have this clicked. And then the one other thing I want you to change is we'll go to agent. And right now for the first message, mine says voice opener. So that's a variable, but we aren't passing the variable right now. So I'm just gonna have it say, hello, how's it going? Now that the first message is set up, let's actually go back to security. I know I have us bouncing around a little bit, and we're going to set up the post call webhook as well. So what we're going to demo is manually calling us, and then we're going to see all that data sent to this webhook so we can do some, data manipulation on the transcript. Now, to get that webhook set up, we're going to go back to our ElevenLabs. Remember, you should have the template ready to go now. And you're going to go to the post call data and scheduling. So we're going to click on this webhook. So once you're inside here, I want you to go to production URL. I want you to copy that. This should be set to post, path will remain the same, authentication, none, respond will be immediately. You don't have to have it to raw body. I was messing with some stuff. Then I want you to go back to ElevenLabs. So once inside here, you'll go to select webhook. You'll go to create webhook. You're going to put in your webhook that you just copy pasted. You can call it whatever. And it's going to be set to HMAC, and then you're going to do create, right? It's going to give you a webhook secret. You can ignore that for now. But you should now have a webhook in there that matches this production one, all right? So save it, come back to here, back out of here. Make sure you have this set, make sure you have this saved and set to active. And we're just going to go ahead and we're going to sever this for now, because this is just to show you what the call kind of looks like, right? We're manually doing the call, and we just want to look at sort of the transcription data. So sever that connection, save this. Now we can actually have it call us. So I want you to go back into here to the ElevenLabs outbound call. So everything should be set like we talked about. It's got the correct URL, we've been authenticated, and we've passed the correct information, the agent ID, the agent phone number ID, and our actual to number. And so now let's actually have it call us. So just hit execute step. Here's the phone call. Slide to answer.
Oh, how's it going?
Hey, what's up?
Great, thank you. To make sure we fully understand your vision, I just have 3.
All right. Call completed. Very cool. But let's take a look at what happened over here with the webhook. Now, to see that, we're just kind of going to go to executions. So here we are inside of executions. We can see the 2 green check marks right here. So let's actually see what happened. So if I click inside the webhook and I go to JSON, we see, hey, it passed us a bunch of data, right? We have the message, the actual transcript. And if we go down to the bottom, there's a lot of interesting variables that we care about here, right? Like the IDs, the caller ID, the number, the date, the time, all that stuff. And then the actual code block, properly transcribed everything, right? Agent, how's it going? Hey, what's up? Great, thank you. Cool. So with that, what you've seen in action now is the outbound call API and the post call data API, right? So we're able to make calls, we're able to get information about the calls. All right, now that we have demoed that our AI agent is able to make outbound calls, it's able to have a conversation with us where it sticks to its script we give it in the system prompt, and we're able to have the webhook properly trigger where we can get all the transcript information, it becomes time to begin threading in all that CRM information so we can personalize the outbound calls and so we can take all the data we gather at the end and push it to that same CRM infrastructure. So if you haven't done it already, I want you to go inside of Airtable and I want you to set up the template I gave you. And this is what it should look like. First name, last name, email, phone number, etc., etc. I want you to now go to forms. It should look like this. You're gonna come up to the top right, you'll go to open, and we are going to go through this together and fill it out. So I want you to just do your first name, your last name, the email, do the phone number. Now add that area code. If you were doing this for real with a real form, you would kind of have that built in, and then do your service requested, right? Submit it, go back to your data, and now you should have some of the basic data filled out, right, for your CRM. Now let's go back to n8n and let's start pushing some of this data through. So first, let's make sure this Airtable trigger works. So I'm gonna unpin this data. You need to connect your Airtable account. So you're gonna go credential to connect with, go to create new credential. If you've never done an Airtable setup before, just go to Open Docs right here and follow the instructions for doing it. You're gonna do the using personal access token. Just go through this step by step. It takes 2 minutes. Once you do that, you'll save it. For the poll times, you're gonna do every minute, and then you're gonna give it your base URL and your table URL. So the base URL is you are just gonna copy, paste everything to here. So it will say airtable.com/app, and then a bunch of numbers and letters. That is the base. And then the table URL is gonna be everything else up to the question mark. So if you have like a question mark at the end that says like blocks equals hide, like mine does for whatever reason, ignore that. It's going to be everything else, right? So that's the table URL. Copy that, paste it into here. Trigger field is going to be last modified, and that's going to be it. Now, real quickly about Airtable. Like I said, we filled out first name, last name, email, phone number, voice agent, so service requested. Over here on the right, you have created a last modified in the voice opener. The voice opener itself, this is an AI block. So if I click in here and go to edit field, you will see that we actually have it hooked up to 4.1 mini with custom instructions, right? And the way this works is when those first few fields are populated, we have it set with this set of instructions, this prompt to create this. When this is created, it then populates this last modified field, because if we go to the last modified field, we will see it's only looking at specific fields. The voice, I'll move this. This last modified field is looking at specific fields, the voice opener. And if we go inside of n8n, we have the trigger field as the last modified field. It's a Airtable thing where the trigger field has to be either a created field or a last modified time field. But once you have that set, I want you to fetch test event. And you should get everything populated, right? First name, last name, all that stuff. I want you to pin that data once it populates. I want you to connect this. You can get rid of this manual trigger. I want you to go to inside the outbound call. I want you to scroll down to the to number, and I want you to map the phone number to here, right? By doing so, you have now set up your entire outbound trigger infrastructure. Every time that form field gets created because some new person put in a lead, it's going to dynamically figure out what that phone number is and initiate the call, right? So we're not going to initiate it right now, but if you just went through that form thing again, it would call you, right? Which is great and all, but we're going to do a little bit more first. So that's that. Next, let's set up the fetch initiation client data piece. So to do that, let's go back inside of ElevenLabs. We are going to go to security again. You're going to go to fetch initiation client data from webhook. You're going to click this, right? I'll delete this one for now. We're going to go to add webhook. And same thing as before, we're going to put in that webhook data. So back to n8n, click on this webhook. I'll unpin this data. Go to production, copy, come in here, paste it. This needs to be set to post. This needs to set to post, but make sure this is using respond to webhook node, okay? You're going to add the webhook and make sure this is selected. You're going to save it. We're then going to go to agent. We're going to get rid of this first message. I want you to do double curly brackets, voice opener. It's going to look like this. Double curly brackets, voice, and then opener. That's going to mean the first message the outbound agent sends is going to be a variable. And that variable is the custom message. And right, that's different for every person. That's why it's a variable. Next, I want you to scroll down. You can save this. Dynamic variables, this is going to pop up. It's not going to let you save it. For voice opener, just put a placeholder value. Just say, hi, hey, what's up? This just means if you were doing test AI agent, that's what it would use. This should be selected as well. And I want you to save. Next, I want you to go to the Airtable sections here and connect those accounts. And you shouldn't have to edit anything here. The only thing you are going to need to edit here is make sure your base and your table match. So the base is, for me, is voice agents and inbound leads, right? Voice agent is the base and the table is the inbound leads. So make sure that matches for you. Make sure it says return all and it's record searching your connected to your account. Same thing down here, right? Voice agent, inbound leads, etc. Now, why do we have one for outbound and inbound calls? If we care about if this is supposed to be an outbound voice agent, this is just here in case you do get an inbound call for whatever reason. If you don't have it set up like this, it would just instantly fail. Now, the outbound call webhook should look something like this. Now, let's talk about what this is. This just means, this is just what we're passing back to ElevenLabs, right? So if I blow this up, all we're saying is, hey, you wanted your custom initiation client data. Well, we're giving that to you, but what we're really giving you is this voice opener. This custom voice opener is what we're passing them, right? And this link right here, Twilio personalization, this kind of gives you a deep dive of the documentation in terms of what's really happening under the hood with this whole webhook infrastructure, right? Because we're passing it custom dynamic variables. And that custom dynamic variable in this case is that voice opener. Notice how this voice opener right here exactly matches our first message, right? Voice opener, voice opener. And what is voice opener? It's this variable that's inside of here, right? And I understand all of what I said is probably super confusing because it was super confusing to me at first too. Just understand what's happening here again. Remember we talked about it at this beginning. It calls you on the phone. The instant it calls you, between the time it calls you and you pick up, you want it to have certain personalized information. And that personalized information we're sending it in this case is this custom message. But we could send it a bunch of other information if we wanted to as well. And if we wanted to send it more information or whatever custom information, we would set it as a variable inside of here, right? So I could do another variable that's called like, variable 2 right? And I map it to Airtable as well, like it's some sort of information. I'll show that in a second. But that's what's happening again. I know it's confusing, but that's what's happening here. But once you've connected your Airtable accounts and you hooked up this webhook inside of ElevenLabs, we can now test this all again. So make sure we're set to active. Hello. Make sure we save it. And now what I want you to do, right? We already have this. We don't need to do the whole form thing again, right? Because you went inside your Airtable trigger and you pinned it. I want you to come here and we're just going to execute the step again and you should get a phone call. So execute step. Here's the agent calling.
Hi, Chase. This is Sarah from Chase AI. I'm reaching out to follow up on your interest in our AI voice agent service.
Hey, thanks. All right, what did you notice there that was different from when we manually did it? It was the custom opening line, right? Hey, Chase, I know you were interested in voice AI agents. When we did it manually, there was none of that. It was just saying, hey, what's up? So we know that's working. We know the initiation client data is working. And let's see if the post-call data is working as well. So we'll go to executions just to confirm everything worked. I come inside here, green check mark, awesome. This is great. This means outbound is working. This means personalization is working. This means post data call analysis is working. Perfect. Your AI agent is pretty much set up, ready to go, even if it seems like it hasn't done anything, because the meat and potatoes of it actually is working. Triggers working, calls working, system prompt is doing what we want. We're getting data at the end. Now comes the easy part. It's just pulling that data out of the transcript and analyzing it and sending it back to Airtable. So let's do that. On this, go to copy to editor. And well, actually, first I want to show something. Let's go back to executions and go to the one that shows the fetch initiation client data working, because I wanted to kind of show you this with real data. So let's click on this webhook and you'll see, hey, this is just some webhook information about who called and whatever. What we care about is this stuff. So it makes the call, it searches the record, it gets all the information from Airtable. And then this is the important part. We pass whatever data we wanted. In this case, like you see here, we passed that voice opener data. But if there was more data inside that Airtable, right? Let's say we had they gave us the budget, right? And we wanted our voice agent to know about that. We could set another variable down here that we called budget, and we just map the data. But back to this part, come to the latest one where we see the transcript and all that. I want you to go to copy to editor, unpin. And now we're going to dive into some of the call analysis. So we have this transcript information here, right? Now we can connect it to the call analysis. Here you will have to have set up your OpenAI account, which you probably have done by now. And you'll see how this works. What's the prompt? The prompt is the transcript. So we just dump the transcript inside of here. We have the system prompt, which goes into what we want it to analyze, as well as how we want the JSON to look like. Now, this JSON piece is important because we want all these items to eventually go inside of our Airtable, right? We're going to have a column for call summary. We're going to have a column for lead status, a column for budget, right? So we want that all put out there. So once you do that, execute the step, and we'll see over here on the right that it gives us everything we want. Call summary, lead status, project details, timeline not mentioned, budget not mentioned. That's fine. Then it goes down two paths, right? You should just connect your Airtable right now. Same thing as usual. Make sure all this stuff lines up, but you'll see all this should already be filled out for you. So what are we sending back to Airtable? Well, first of all, we're matching based on phone number, right? So it actually puts it in the right row, but we're sending back the call summary, the lead status, all that stuff. So I just went call summary, dragged it in there. Lead status, dragged it in there. Budget, dragged it in there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if I hit execute step, if we go back in here, look at that. Filled out all the stuff for us right away. And this will happen automatically when we have the automation finished. Now, it wasn't qualified, so it just does nothing. But if it was, it would search the records based on their phone number. So it takes the phone number that was used in that call and will grab all their information. And then it passes it to an email, right, that it grabs from Airtable and says, hey, how's it going? First name, here's the Calendly link, right? So that's how the follow-up works. And again, that follow-up could be anything you want. So now that's all connected, I want you to save it. And now what we're going to do one final time, we're going to run it right from the top and have it do everything for us automatically. So go back to Airtable, delete this row, right? We're just going to start fresh. Go to forms, go to the form we have, go to open, fill it out, and let's run it. So Chase And again, Chase AI. Give it the correct phone number with the area code, and then voice AI agent. Submit it, go back to your data, and wait for that call. Like I said, I think it's been taking us anywhere from 10 to 15 seconds, which isn't too bad. And we can even bring up the executions tab if we want and kind of wait for this to work. All right, here's our call.
Hi, Chase. This is Sarah from Chase AI. I'm reaching out to follow up on your interest in our voice AI agent service.
Hey, yeah, I need a voice agent.
Great, thank you. To make sure we fully understand your vision, I just have 3 quick questions. First, could you tell me a little?
Okay, we're not going to go through the whole thing yet again, but let's take a look at what happened. So it's running right now. So we can see in the executions, outbound worked. We can also see the client data initialization worked. And did our post call work? Yes, right? Analyzed the call, uploaded it to Airtable, didn't send the message. But if we go into Airtable, we'll see, hey, everything was set up. Now, let's talk about creating dashboards. Creating dashboards inside of Airtable is pretty easy. Honestly, if you just click this little AI guy on the left-hand side, you just prompt it like you would ChatGPT and tell it to create a dashboard, right? Like the first thing it says is create a dashboard for inboard leads to track status, and it'll create it for you. And obviously, if you have more data, you can actually tell it, hey, provide fake data for 20 rows. And you can continue to play with the interface. And this is how you create your quote unquote dashboard that you can then turn around to clients and say, hey, this is what it would look like when you're running this at scale, which is really, really powerful and people love to see. So that's how the dashboard thing looks, right? Here it is just for, I'll move over here. This is just for one guy, right? And we could tweak this, right? Key metrics, all this stuff. Like you show someone this, oh my God, wow, that's amazing. I'll pay you an extra $2,000. That's like only slightly tongue in cheek, but that's how you do the interface piece of all this. That was a lesson. That was a video. We did a lot. I'm sure you are thoroughly confused, but I did my best to try to start this at a high level, break it down piece by piece, and then eventually have it all work as one coherent thing. Again, let's just recap what we've done here. We've gone to Twilio. You now have the ability to create phone numbers for your AI agents. That wasn't too bad. 2, we went inside of ElevenLabs and created a voice agent, and you kind of saw how we do that. You saw how we can give it different voices. You saw how we can deal with system prompts. We dived into the security piece, namely, how do we do this fetch initiation client data? How do we do post-call webhooks, right? We dove into that. We went and do n8n infrastructure on the back end, right? How do we set up this like CRM trigger thing for voice agents, right? How do we combine CRM with voice, with AI, right? Because that's super important. That's what clients want. It's not enough for us to go inside of ElevenLabs and have this voice agent that works in a vacuum. That's not enough. It needs to be able to integrate with external systems. So we figured out how to do triggers with outbound calls. We figured out how to fetch personalized data and pushed dynamic variables based on that data every single time we make a call. And we went through how can we take that data from the call at the end, parse it and push it places, and then actually do follow-up actions with it. In this case, send an email, right? We've actually covered quite a bit, and there's still a lot to learn, right? Because we didn't even really touch inbound agents. We didn't touch using n8n as essentially like a tool hub that you see down here. But we did cover a lot. And frankly, the inbound stuff I think is a little bit easier. So as always, templates down below, Skool, there's more guides. We're gonna continue doing more and more voice stuff. So I hope you're ready for that. And let me know what issues you run into. I'm sure you'll run into a bunch. It's something you're just gonna have to struggle through and get working. But I promise you the bones of a very sophisticated voice AI agent service are here, right? You just need to customize it for your own use case. So let me know what you think. Good luck, and I'll see you around.